Alright, tonight I'm going to work on the back half of the Landmaster with these 4 parts. I'm going to be using this midsection to make sure that I don't shave off too much when I'm sanding and getting these things together. I'm going to be using everything as an alignment to make sure all my widths are correct. Resin has a way of just being a funky material. I want to make sure all my sides are flat and not bowed out or cupped in. So I'll be just trimming this up, trimming out the doors out of the back, or not doors, but they're openings out of the back, and pre-drilling all the 16th inch pin alignment holes and any other holes that I have to do. Not going to bore you with that, so I'm just going to go ahead and clean this up, and then when I go and do the pinning of it and putting the pieces together, we'll see what the alignment is and see if there's any flaws in it. At least all the wheels are what the heck? How did I get in there? This is not a radio controlled car. Anyway, this is these are all the wheels. They're all sanded and prepped. So that's something you just kind of take a few evenings to just do and just shut your brain off, because it is mind-numbing work when you're doing with 12 wheels. And I know I'm going to be building at least 2 of these things, so and I'm not looking forward to all the wheels. But let's get this prototype built and going. Time to make some dust. So get my dust mask on, get my exhaust vacuum in here, and get to work. Alright, well, I've roughed out the openings and took off all the little fill sprues that come off of this thing from the mold. I've also pre-drilled all the pinholes. Now I'm not going to use all these pinholes. I'm just going to use what it needs to align the parts together. What I'm looking for now is any high spots, any weird misalignments, any warpage. I'm seeing that I probably just have to run a sanding block over these edges to make this fit a little bit flatter, but what we don't want to do is make it take off so much material it does not line up with this. the center sections. The center section will be my guide to make sure that when I glue this together that I'm not getting too narrow or too fat of this part, because that'll throw the whole model off. It should be right, but again, resin is such a non-stable medium, I should say, because it cooks at such a hot temperature, and it's all what do you call it, thermo or catalytic reaction. I'm not really sure what that terminology is, but being it's 2-part resin and it pretty much kicks off in a few minutes, we get what we get, but at least we can make cool models out of it. Anyhow, so I'm just going to progress and just be fitting this thing together and fidgeting with it and making sure it all lines up before I do any gluing. With the way it goes together, I could run a straight edge around this, and I'm looking at little if no variations in height between the two pieces, which is great. There's going to be a little bit of filling on the bottom, but nothing major. Again, if somebody wanted to do an interior of this thing, they have some working room. But again, I'm just putting the door on this and calling it done. The next thing I'm going to do is fit this front end on there and make sure this all lines up. If I have to shim this, or if I have to, sand a little bit more. I doubt I have to shim it. That would be unheard of. But things I'm watching for, again, are how flat the two pieces are together, because this is absolutely flat, or at least the masters are. So we want those to be flat too. There is no seam running along the length of this vehicle. So these are all 1/8 inch pins, and I don't have any 1/8 inch pins here. So I'm going to go upstairs to my office and see if I had brought them up there. I should only have like little tiny nub ones. I could make some plastic ones, which works out fine too. Yeah, I'll probably just go with plastic. Get my cutters. My wife used my cutters as pruning shears and left them outside. So that's why they're rusty. I remember my dad hollering at me when I was a kid about leaving his tools in the backyard. Now it's come full circle. So I'm just going to cut a bunch of little nubs. I think 4 will be enough. If you're curious about the two different colors of resin, it's just I put tint in one side when I first was running the mold, and then I didn't tint the other side, and figure that this is the prototype. I could take some artistic license there. I'm liking it doing this way. That way there can be no variation in what the width that this. I know that it could just totally line up together. Now I'm not gluing this in place. I apologize if I keep on getting out of frame. The only thing I'm concerned about on this is to make sure that everything is in the right dimension and that these upper and lower pieces are flat. And the way this looks, I could probably start gluing this thing together right now, because it looks right. I think I might put 2 more pins in there just to hold these 2 pieces. See that right there? I don't know if you can see on the camera. They're just so bizarre. Been working on a reverse monitor. That could be too much of a deviation, so I'm going to put 2 more pins in. Also, I might jump up to a 128 drill bit just to make my life a little simpler with this plastic. It's a little oversized. Do the drill index. .128 is 3 thou over 1/8 of an inch. And now I need a small pair of pliers to pull the pins out. I like to use steel pins because this is just destroying the what do you call it, the styrene. And this will end up getting when you shave it off, I'm going to have to drill it out. These will end up being pins and neodymium magnets to hold the pieces together. What is up with this drill? This drill bit's been dulled down for some reason. So I'm just going to drill it underneath the drill. Okay. Oh, there we go. Making some new pins. 1, 2. Making about a 1/4 inch long. 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now let's try this again. even working in the camera. I apologize. Concentrating on my work here. Concentrating on the camera. Stay in frame. And how many times am I going to cut that too short? There it is. And I'm just going to open up this a little bit. Oh, this drill bit sucks. And the two on the bottom. I don't know if I should do an off-angle camera on this. Maybe over my right shoulder. My shoulder's probably going to get in the frame all the time. Just don't know. Okay, now I'm going to push this together. There it goes. Now everybody's lined up real nice. There's no flexing going on. Oh, yeah. So I might just go ahead and run a bead of Sino from the inside and just glue it from the inside and just leave it together. Ah! And just work slowly around the edges and see what happens. Work in the center of the frame. So one thing that I did not do before I started doing this was to wash these parts. Now I'm going to live a little dangerously. I'm going to go ahead, I've done all this work, I'm going to glue it together and just make a note for myself to wash. So anything else that I do, I'm going to make sure all the parts are washed before I start my assembly. But this, I can actually wash this and it should be okay. But we'll find out. If it loosens up all the super glue, I'll have to go back and reinforce it. This right here, this concerns me a little bit about the fact that it's bowing up. But I'll just push it in when I glue it and see what happens. If it still gives me trouble, I might put it all in hot water and just hold it there for a minute or two and bring it out and then put it in cold water, and it should go back to where it's supposed to be or where I want it to be. I'm just going to run a bead of super glue. I like using a gap filling one. If I'm using the thin one, it could just run and get everywhere. So I'm just going to push that down together. And run the accelerator right over it. The reason why I'm pushing down on it is to get the top side to glue together first. And I can go on the back side and fill that gap in, and then the top should be straight. Now the glue is grabbed. Paper towel. I'm not wiping off the glue, I'm wiping off the accelerator. So now I'm going to check that, just using a pencil as a straight edge. And I'm liking what I see there. It's like nothing that can't be fixed with a little bit of sanding, and the seam will just get a little bit of putty. And if you look on the inside, I just run a bead of glue on the inside of this and it'll be structurally sound. If I really wanted to get crazy, I'd probably bridge this with a piece of fiberglass, cloth and cyano, or even epoxy if I wanted it to be super strong. If I was concerned about it just from being handled. But it's grabbing really nice, so I don't think I'm going to have an issue. Just love the way that everything lines up right here. I don't know if you can see turn the model around, but it's you can see the edges of these pieces are lined up really nice. A little bit soft on the corners, but that's just you know, some quick filling to make that go away. I'll just press that back in there, then you can see the parts. So I'm going to go back in and start gluing some more. Taking the sharp tools and putting them over to the side closed so it doesn't fall on my feet. Working over the center of the frame again. You kind of feel the parts kind of snap into position with each other. Now these are pretty tight. I will come in here with some very liquidy super glue. I'll let that do the work for me here. This will get pulled down the seam by capillary action, and that's the way you pronounce it. That stuff will set up really fast. Take my trusty dusty straight edge here. Take a look at what's going on with this. Yep. It's nice. Nice. So I want to get this thing together so I can start painting it. But that's a long way off yet. Running the glue down the entire seam here. Whatever gets in there, gets in there. Holding it together, making sure I don't glue myself to my model. I'm just going to wipe off the excess glue off the top of it here. Now this wants to bow out a little bit, so I'm just putting a little bit of pressure on this side too. The model has some flex to it, though the walls aren't, you know, 1/4 inch thick. I tried to make it like a thin-walled styrene kit, but there are limits. The plastic is approximately 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch thick all around it. That is pretty darn flat. Getting a little bit of a wobble. What I could do is I could push this against well, the glue's not set up yet. Push this against a flat block and then glue from the inside, and that should take up the any error that I'm having here. So I'm going to get a flat block. Flat block. That would be sorry about the camera angle. I got a flat block underneath there. I'm putting pressure on it so the model is flat, and I'm running super glue on the inside of it. Sorry you can't see that, but all I'm doing is just putting it right down the seam. Doing the back side first. Why? Because that's just what I'm doing. Now I'm going to do the front side. Do it crossways like that, see what happens. It's a little bit stable. Better stability pushing on it this way, because I'm putting a bit of weight on here. We got out of there. And that's all needed for some coercion. That's flat. All right. So now I'm going to run around the back side of this thing and just work my way around. I'm going to use the thin stuff on the outside. See if I get it to travel through the entire seam. I don't like sanding super glue because it's a lot harder than most of the plastics that you're gluing together with it. So you end up taking off too much stuff. It's a little bit difficult for me to keep it in camera and kind of see what I'm doing at the same time, where I'd normally be working close in and over it. I'm trying to, it's weird building a model at half arm's length. And it's raining outside, which is really strange because I live in Southern California. We don't see much rain. We have two seasons, wildfire and mudslide. So looks like I had a little bit of runoff of super glue. I got my fingerprints on the model, so a bit more super glue in there than I thought, and that's why I like to use the thicker stuff, so I'm going to back off on the thin stuff and just take my chances with the thick stuff. I like the model, but I don't want to become a physical part of it by supergluing myself to it. It's not grabbing. I'll grab my finger. There goes peel slowly. So, got a little bit of cleanup to work. Again, I'm a pretty ham-fisted modeler, so there's a lot more careful guys out there than me. Got super glue on me. I have to soak myself in the shower. So now on the inside here, the inside crack, I'm going to run some thick super glue in there. That'll give me a good anchor all the way through. And I'm going to let this sit overnight. Well, it's already nighttime, but I'm going to let it sit. And then tomorrow I'm going to come back and I'll sand and start the filling operation. Again, I'm sorry for the camera angles, but you need to kind of see what I'm doing too. But you get the gist of what's going on here. I do not want this thing sitting on the shelf and then showing cracks in a year, so I'll make sure I get enough glue in here. Make sure all the seams have glue in them, even if it's on the back side. And I'm not being very careful with the glue, I'm just letting it puddle up into all the corners. If I can see light through the crack, I'm putting glue in it. Yeah, the thin stuff leaked back out, and now I got a little bit of sanding to do. Sand my fingerprints off. I didn't glue that on, so that's good. Put that over to the side. And I'm probably going to use this. I'll just fill these voids in. This is like the first run before I realized I need a lot more fill holes. And I'll just probably take some epoxy putty and fill up those holes, because other than that, the part's fine. That's on the bottom, so it's fine. Take this little seam right here, make sure this has enough glue in it. And I might hit the books tonight and take a look at the dash panel on this thing, dashboard. See what it's going to take for me to do a 3D model of the interior cabin area of it. The model really needs it, so I might as well do the. Gone this far, right? I should have stopped dropping this. I got super glue leaking out of the areas. So I'm going to get my spray accelerator and make sure I get in every bit of this that I can. I really don't like using this, but because it's so random and it just, I think about 50% of it gets onto the model. But it is very effective at hardening this thing. You can see how it gets everywhere. And make sure you're in a I'm in a ventilated shop, so it's like spray booth because it's so strong in terms of the smell. That's why I like using the accelerator in a needle bottle. It's very it's a lot more controllable, and you're not wasting this stuff. It's like spray on suntan lotion. You know, I think half of it actually gets on your skin. The rest of it just blows away. Anyway, here we are. It looks pretty nifty. I'm just going to let it sit overnight, and we'll do some sanding and some filling tomorrow. Maybe for fun we'll do a pre-assembly of the side wheels and see how they look, just for fun, because I know I have at least one set of this trimmed and ready to go. We could put it on there and put the wheels on it. And watch the wheels go around. Alright. I don't know how long this is, but I'll try to trim this video way down, so it's not as painful as the wheel one. Yeah, I got a little bit of fixing to do. Yeah, it shouldn't be that bad. I gotta let this glue totally set up. Here we go. When I come back, it'll be tomorrow night.